Hello and welcome to Cowboys Takeover. What a show we have for you, ladies and gentlemen, today. It is officially Rivalry week. Who are we playing? I think we all know. The Dallas Cowboys are playing the Philadelphia Eagles, where Mr. Aaron James and myself both, we live in that area. So we get this rivalry. What does this, when you think of this week, what really encapsulate this Dallas Eagles rivalry in your mind when you think of those things?
Yeah, so local Philadelphia calls this week Dallas Week. It's 2 weeks out of the year that the city is ultra pumped at the rivalry. And I want to give everybody a little bit more flavor here as a local. So the Philadelphia Eagles, not only do they love to promote their team, but they go out of their way. This is a dealership in northern Philadelphia, an auto dealership. They go out of their way to post that Dallas sucks all over the place. And Jason, I didn't tell you this, but I went to a WWE SmackDown event in Philadelphia at Wells Fargo Center. Before SmackDown started, a Dallas sucks chant broke out for a WWE event.
Hey, you're in Philadelphia, you don't really expect anything less when you come here.
So, this whole thing was new to me, moving from West Coast to East Coast. But Jason, you've grown up around here. What's your experience been like for the rivalry?
Oh my God, dude, it's terrible. It's something that you really don't get. And I feel like outside of the Northeast, they aren't there's passionate fans, but I feel like just Northeast fans are wild. And in Philly, there was times as a kid, 19, 20 years old, my dad's in the hospital, so I'm going to visit him. You're in football season, you're going, you wear your Cowboys jersey and you get 50, 60-year-old men just ripping you in a hospital when you're going to go see your dad. It's insane. I learned real early, never, something my dad taught me. He's a diehard Eagles fan. He was pretty pissed that I was a Cowboys fan, but he taught me early on, never, you never go to the stadium in your Cowboy stuff. It's, I remember being, it couldn't have been more than 8, 9, 10 years old. We went to the game and my dad said, you can't. I had this cool Dallas starter jacket back in the day, had my Aikman shirt. He's like, you can't wear any of that. You're not allowed. And I just didn't get it. But then you get there and you see the crowd and you see what happens. And then as you get older, you understand. So this is a rivalry like no other. This brings out the passion in the Philadelphia fan base. And they don't even care if it's their own brother. They're going to rip you to shreds if you're a Cowboys fan. No doubt.
And so, and I get it. I wear my Cowboys gear in the local community, and every now and then, you're gonna get a couple comments, but also at the same time, if other Cowboys fans will come up to you and be like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" So there's a bond as well that keeps us together. And listening to a lot of the listeners in the local radio, they were talking about how this rivalry started and why it's so prevalent. And the consensus seems to be that it just kind of stems from the dominance of the 90s. The Cowboys just basically, through a majority of that decade, running wild on the Eagles. But the radio host was trying to convince listeners that, hey, this shouldn't be a rivalry anymore because Cowboys have, quote unquote, haven't been successful in so long. So why are we even, giving them the time of day? So, it is what it is. Ultimately, right, we're in the same division. And now we're in this era where we have both our franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I think it's only going to heat up from here, and it's kind of a new era, if you will, of the rivalry. Kind of, I've said it before.
Not a good play. It's going to be, and you're both good teams now. I think that's the big thing. It's been a lot of A lot of time where one team was really good and another team was really down. But it's always been a rivalry that's kind of shocked me when you look at the just geographics of the two. Um, one being in Texas and another one in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania. It's,
Hmm.
and it's crazy because I think, growing up and always, kind of really paying attention to sports, they always said the Eagles are more Giants and Dallas is more Washington, are the bigger rivalry games. But it never feels like it feels like I've been to Giant Stadium. It was very relaxed with what you could wear. Like I didn't hear
Hmm.
anything going on. Um, and the hatred for Dallas just flows through the blood of Philadelphians. And here in South Jersey, it flows through it. So it's a different experience. But it always shocked me. I didn't understand it, like why. You'd think you would hate the Giants more. They're much closer. The geographics are there.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's wild. You can see old ladies cursing out kids. It is insane up here.
Yeah, so let's, plenty of talk about it. I'm sure we'll head on it more during the post game, but let's get into this week's pre-game breakdown. Like we've typically been doing, we're going to be talking about what the Eagles season has done and how they've looked so far.
Yeah, they've looked really good at times, and then there's other times, when you watch them play, against some of this subpar competition. Um, even so, being up here in the Philadelphia area, you heard all the comments. They were winning games, but they weren't winning them convincingly. They weren't dominating the way they thought they should. The defense didn't look like it did last year, and then that game against the Jets that they just seemingly gave away. Um, so it was one of those things where a lot of people thought, hey, the sky may be falling here. And then, that next matchup against Miami and they dominate. Um, and then, beating Washington, in kind of a close game, one that could have really, went either way. Washington had a great chance
Hmm.
um, to win it. At times, and they couldn't pull through. So, it's been up and down, but they're winning. The only game they shouldn't have lost the Jets game, but really outside of that, they're winning and they're 7-1. And AJ Brown looks like he could be the best receiver in the league. He's definitely given Hill a run for the money.
Hmm.
Um, I think that just shows how important a receiver is in the development of a quarterback. I mentioned it to you before we started here. He is for Jalen what Amari was for Cooper, and in a much greater sense because the difference that he shows with AJ Brown, you could just see it in his last. If you look at those last 7 games since Tampa Bay, 130 yards or more every game, just 127 or more, just dominance. 6 straight games with that, as the record for most consecutive games with 125 yards or more. Um, and then the defense gets sacks. The
Yeah.
defense still rushes the quarterback well. The only knock on them is their pass defense, but they're in a lot of high scoring games. So I feel like you expect that um, when you're a team that puts up a lot of points. But they do get to the quarterback, so they've had a great season so far. They're happy with what they're looking. They look like they have some MVP candidates, um, and people are still knocking the tush push. So they've had a solid season so far.
Yeah, and as a Cowboys fan rooting against them, it's been painful to watch just these, one possession games. Some of these scores reflect, closer games than the actual score, and some not so. They had a commanding lead over Minnesota, so they squeaked by New England. Mac Jones couldn't pull off a 2 minute drill, and with Minnesota, kind of Kirk Cousins and that Justin Jefferson had a fumble going into the end zone in that game. They're pretty convincing win over Tampa, and their most impressive win was Miami. I was really hoping that Washington would be able to do something special. Now, Sam Howell did have, I think it was over 400 passing
Oh
yards.
yeah, he had himself a day against that defense.
So I'm sure, McCarthy and Schottenheimer are looking at the film to see how they created space um, and look to leverage some of that tape against the Eagles. But they still squeak away with a one possession game. But I guess Commanders did score in some garbage time. But uh, this is kind of what at least I was expecting of the Eagles. We both had them basically undefeated going into this game uh,
Yeah,
in preseason, but the fact that they have a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, they're getting these ugly wins, but they're still pulling it off as really good teams are supposed to do, and that's what they did last year, and they stayed healthy all year last year, and so far so good. So let's talk a little bit about their kind of top players and more individual performances for the team, and I have that here on a different page. 1 second.
yeah.
But you were
When
talking
you
about AJ Brown. I mean, we can start there.
he's definitely, yeah. When you think of the Eagles, I think he's their most important player. Um, if you just look at the maturation of Jalen Hurts, the since he's had, AJ, AJ's the type of dude that you just in Madden, you're like, let's just throw it up and hope he goes get it. That's him. And that's what he does, and he's tough to take down, averaging over 15 yards a catch. Second in the league in receptions, I believe, second in yardage. He's averaging 117 yards a game. You know, he, he's so dominant. 83 targets, 60 catches. So he's really helped Jalen out a lot. He's a guy that he knows, he's definitely a bigger bodied receiver. You start with him, and then a guy like Devonta, who they thought was probably going to have to be their number one originally before they got out. They have a great number two. So it's really helped Jalen out a lot. I think AJ, when you're looking at top Eagles, he's head and shoulders, I think, for that team over anyone else.
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, AJ's averaging 117 yards per game, which is like video game stats. But then it's a big drop off from there. So Devontae Smith at 60 yards per game, Dallas Goddard at 45. So we were talking in the green room. AJ Brown really needs to stay healthy for this team throughout the season and into the playoffs because he's the difference maker. Creates a lot of mismatches regarding their rushing game. DeAndre Swift, uh, surprisingly, I was a little bit surprised when I saw this figure. He's averaging 4.9 yards a carry.
Well, he did have a couple of those really big games too, where I think there's a
That's
few
true.
of them he had like 10 or 11 carries for like a $130. So I know there were some games in there that he just dominated. I think that they skew his numbers some.
So, but he's ultimately, in my opinion, filled in Miles Sanders' role very well. In my opinion, I think he's even a little bit more explosive, a little bit more dangerous, and offers a little bit more in the passing game than Miles did. So that's why I actually picked him up in fantasy. But the only thing about Hurts this year, I would say two things. He's not They're not running the RPO as much as they did last year. And uncharacteristically, he's already at 8 interceptions on the season.
I just think I never thought he was the most accurate passer. So the 8 interceptions don't shock me because when you look at him throw, I think that's always been his biggest issue. Um, is his arm. He doesn't
Mhm.
have. If you've watched any Eagles games at the end and he's trying to throw up Hail Marys, if you watched that Super Bowl last year when he tried to throw up that Hail Mary, dude's got a noodle arm. So it doesn't shock me as much because he definitely isn't a guy that, and I get the accuracy numbers are there, but I do think that's a product of having a guy in AJ Brown who is a huge difference maker. But has 19 sacks. He's not running as much, I think, as he has in the past. He seems to be trying to get the quarterback thing down more. And I don't know if that's a new offensive coordinator thing or whatever it is, but the rushing yards aren't there, but he's still going to give you, if they need a first down. I think last week was the first time they got stopped this year.
Mm-hmm.
But if you need a first down or a touchdown, that's why, I had to draft him at quarterback fantasy. Dude gets touchdowns. You get the 1 yard line, he's getting in. And that's where you can go in top players. I think, you just look at that offensive line. They have 3 all pro players, basically, on that side. And I think when you jump to the other side, if you look at defense, they have one of the premier edge rushers in Hassan Reddick, who I believe led the league last year, or was tops in there with sacks. So they have a dude who, first few games of the season couldn't really get it going because he had a cast on his hand. And since that's come off, he's really dominated and has 6.5 sacks in the season. Then Josh Sweat has 5.5. So they definitely have some guys that can come off that edge as well.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any news around if Jalen Carter is going to be able to go this game. He's been battling, I think, a hamstring, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, he can pose a big problem for us lining up in the middle. I mean, he's had an impressive rookie season.
Big
Definitely living up to the top 10 first round draft pick. One thing that I thought was a little surprising, the defensive leading tackler is Reed Blankenship, their safety, with 48 tackles, followed by Zach Cunningham, their linebacker, at 44. So that's not a good sign when your safety is leading the team in tackles.
Well, when you look at I think with the way they put up points, I think that we've seen it throughout the years in teams, with those Indianapolis teams, those Peyton Manning teams. Nope, that's indeed Tom Brady teams. I mean, when they were scoring a lot of points, your safeties are going to have to get a lot because they're going to be throwing a lot against you. So I think that's more of a play style because they put up points, and that's attributed to their 26th ranked pass defense that your safety's making a lot of these tackles. But they used to be known to have them thumping linebackers, and they don't really have that much anymore. But they're still a very dangerous team. They're very good defense. They got some guys that can take the ball away. They may not have the interceptions this year, but they're definitely a team that can take away. They do have 2 very good cornerbacks. So they're a top premier team. So I think they're like that San Fran. They have studs all over. When you're a team that's projected and coming off a Super Bowl, projected to make it back, you're really going to have. When you say top players, there's going to be a lot of them. There's going to be a lot of guys on the team that are really good.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, Eagles have a really competitive team. A lot of analysts say that they're better on paper than the Cowboys, but I think I really like the players that we have. Now, I do think Eagles have the edge when it comes to the offensive line. I think what Lane Johnson's been doing, and Kelsey in the middle, and is it Mailata on their left side? That they've been. That's the one thing that's concerns me going in this game, because Micah hasn't really been able to do anything.
Not against Lane either.
Against this offensive line. Now, Micah did work on his craft, so he's another year matured, another year. I think he does look quicker than he did last year. So, and he also lines up in different places. So, we'll see how it plays out. But, if Jalen is going to have, 4 to 5 seconds plus just to sit back there, it's going to be a long day.
See, I don't think DQ does that. I know the thing against Jalen is he's a guy that when you get pressure on him, and I'm sure every quarterback is it, but his is much. He drops tremendously. So I do think, and you saw that's what the Jets did. The Jets have a great defense too. So they were able to get there and not really have to send extra guys. So I think that's the thing, Dallas. I think we're going to, if they're going to want to win this game, it's going to have to be done in those trenches. You're going to need Tank and those guys to really step up and put together a good performance without having to send extras, I think.
Yeah, it's so to talk a little bit about just the a brief comparison of the teams. Now it's a little bit skewed because the Cowboys are, um, have a bye in these notes, so one game less played. But Eagles are seventh in the NFL in passing. Cowboys are 21st. Rushing, Eagles are ranked sixth. Cowboys are 18th. Total touchdowns, Eagles are fourth. Cowboys are 12th. Now there's only a 5 touchdown difference with the Eagles at 24. Defensive rushing yards allowed. I changed this metric just because the number of games is different. So uh, Eagles are allowing 3.8 yards per carry, which is eighth in the NFL. Cowboys are allowing 4.1 yards per carry, tied for 16th. And then lastly, defensive passing yards. This is where our opportunity is. Eagles are 27th in the league, allowing almost 2,000 passing yards, whereas the Cowboys are second in the NFL with only allowing 1,250. So that's going to be, I think, the stat that proves who the victor is. If we are allowed to keep Jalen Hurts under, I'd say the magic number is probably 250 in the air. If we're able to keep him under that, obviously keep AJ Brown under 100 yards, which we've been doing all season long with wide receivers. We talked about it last week. We should have a lot of confidence with what we've seen against Nakua and Cup.
Agreed.
The two very difficult guys to cover. But at the same time, our D line did do their job and was pretty successful in getting to the quarterback against that game, and that's going to be our challenge here.
Agreed.
So that's the defensive side, and then on the offensive side, Dak's going to have to do what Sam Howell did basically, and he has no excuses really. If Sam Howell can do it with McLaren and arguably, a lesser talented,
definitely, I would think definitely, yeah, agreed. Dak should definitely. That's going to be the key. I think. I know we're going to look at that later, but I think the big thing's going to have to be Dak this week because Eagles are in yards per game. They're the number one rush defense in the league. Because they only give up 68 rushing yards. I'm sorry, 65 rushing yards a game, and that's 11 yards better than the next best team. So it really makes sense why their pass defense is so bad. It really kind of reminds me of those early 2000 Minnesota teams that had the great pass defense, or I'm sorry, the great rush defense, and the pass defense was just terrible. So I don't think you're going to have to this week. You're going to have to need Dak to exploit that weakness and try to make plays. And you're like you said, if Sam Howell can put it up, CD should have another big game. But those offensive stats make me a little nervous. And I'm still shocked that Jalen Hurts he's throwing for 250 yards a game, which he just doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it, but he is. And it's insane. But I think that just goes to show and to speak to the talent that AJ Brown is. He's a phenomenal receiver, and he's going to help any offense. It's crazy. And then they get another kid from Tennessee, get to trade another Kevin Byard, who is a former All-Pro safety for a bag of beans. They just get to take everything from town. I'm shocked they didn't get Derrick Henry. But I think it's going to be a very good game. I think the stats are very close. It's there's a lot of talking between CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown. There was a lot of comparison to them in the offseason, and AJ Brown did a lot of talking. And this is an opportunity. Just looking at things like that I'm sure CeeDee Lamb. These players always look for any little edge. I'm sure CeeDee's thinking, okay, This dude said I'm a slot guy, and he's better than me. And AJ Brown, I'm sure is thinking, I'm gonna go shut everybody up. Anybody that ever had a comparison, I'm ending it today. Um, but yeah, so when you look at it next too, when you go through everything, what is if you're looking at the Cowboys, I think what are your keys to victory for the Cowboys? What do they need to do to pull this out?
Yeah, so I think if you just focus in on AJ Brown, double team him, bump him on the line. I'm not really concerned as to who guards him, whether it be Bland or Gilmore. When it was against when we were up against the Rams, I was really big on I really want Bland on Cup the whole game. But in this particular instance, I'm fine with either because I really like just the experience that Gilmore adds and the way he studies uh, route wide receivers and how they run their routes. I just feel like it'll be a good combination. So if you take care of Gilmore, um, I'm sorry, if you take care of AJ Brown, I say we win if he stays under 70 yards for the game. But I do think that the Eagles coming into this game, their strategy is going to be to run the ball and win time of possession. So I suspect, and I'd be surprised otherwise, I suspect them to come in and have the most rushing attempts that they've had so far this year.
I could definitely see that because Dallas is still one of the lesser rush defenses. And I just think the dynamic that Hurts gives, we saw it against Arizona when Dobbs, early in the game kept one for a 50-yarder. I don't think Hurts does that because I think the Cowboys and those ends will be with him more thinking of him pulling and running. So stopping that. But I think that'll open up a lot of those holes for a guy like Swift to have a big game. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be something, maybe, I think early on, because I think that's the key as well. Like you said, if you're running against Dallas, Dallas is a team that wants to play from ahead. They want to get to the quarterback. So the issues we've had are, we can't get to the quarterback and they're able to run on us because, we're behind. So we can't just pin our ears back. So I think that's going to be definitely the game plan. And they have a team that can do it. They're
Mm-hmm.
they're really good, but I do think as well you got to focus. If they hold AJ Brown under 70 yards, I 100% agree with you. That to me that's almost to me a Dallas blowout if you're holding AJ Brown that low.
Yeah. Now, if the Eagles want to go look at the tape against the 49ers that game, they're going to say, okay, McCaffrey, he only got 60 rushing yards
Yeah, he was held
that
pretty
game.
low.
So if they feel they're not going to be if they don't feel as confident that they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground, and they know, we got top corners on AJ Brown. Also, I mentioned earlier, Hurts has 8 interceptions. When you see Bland out there, someone who's leading the league in pick sixes, you're gonna be careful, but you want to be careful with the football. So, we should also mention, Dallas Goedert. If they try to make him part of that offense the way Niners did with Kittle, that could pose a challenge in the first half. I really like what we've been doing in second half adjustments and what DQ is doing. So if they're going to try to come up with something a little bit more unique than what they've shown earlier in the season, the first half is going to be their opportunity to try to catch us off balance. Goddard, I think, is one way they can do that. But yeah, so because I did say they got to run the ball, but again, we've held pretty much everybody except with the exception of Arizona, with a couple big running plays actually, and also a throwing play. We've pretty much contained offenses pretty
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So I think those are definitely the keys on defense. I think on offense, um, Dak's got to limit the turnovers.
Hmm.
I have to see. To me, I think to win this game, Dallas has to play a turnover-free game. These teams know each other too well. Um, you know, and playing against that defense, you're going to have opportunities to make plays. So you can't turn the ball over, and you have to capitalize on the plays that need to be made. Because in most games, it's 3 or 4 plays, miss pass here, miss pass there. That is the game. So I think this week Dak has to be, he has to look just as good as he did last week, if
Mhm.
not better. So to me, it's on the offensive side, no turnovers, and Dak has to perform.
Yeah, I went back to rewatch our October matchup from last year where Cooper Rush played, but it was the game that Jalen Hurts played, so I wanted to see how they ran their offense, and they were up. I think it was 20-3 at the half of that game, and a lot of that was due to three and outs by the Cowboys early on. They did come back in the fourth quarter, cut it down to 17-20. Again, second half only held them to 6 points. Um, but so I think with our offense, I want to see more continued creativity. And, it kind of clicked for me earlier today, as a matter of fact, that as far as our offense and our identity, we're a passing sideline to sideline speed based offense.
Yeah.
That's, if you look at our key players and Land Cooks, Pollard, speedy guys, route runners, crossing routes, that's just the makeup of our offense and the players that we have. And we should feel confident saying what we had, the success we had with the Chargers and the Rams and back-to-back games, that's going to carry over into this game. Historically, Dak has been, um, pretty dominant when it comes to playing the Eagles. I believe it's eight
He
and three.
has.
So that has to show, and it's going to be an exciting game. So I say, as long as we are moving the ball, getting first downs, we can't. The three and outs are only going to feed the home team and the crowd. And if you give the Eagles short field, or that if they have time of possession because they're running the ball and moving it, it's gonna be hard to come out with a win.
Yeah, I agree. I really think Dak needs to. They need to lock down on that identity that they've really feel like the last 2 weeks they've created.
Hmm.
Um, and this is a moment for Dak. This is, I think, um, I don't want to say career, but this is a big moment for him, because I think a lot of the Cowboys fans, um, and a lot of people don't believe in him. Don't believe he can be a guy. And after the shellacking he took against San Fran, and I know they've lost 3 in a row since. I just wanted to throw that in there. Um, but you don't know, and he's lost 3 in a row to them. It feels like a lot of these big games, when they're a good team, the big games, I feel like sometimes he just doesn't show up. So if he shows up big this week, that could just build the confidence. This is a big game. You don't want to get blown out, and you want Dak to have a good game and be confident. Because if Dak can lead you to victory, that can change a lot of people's minds. This is a game for both of the teams.
Hmm.
With San Fran losing 3 in a row now, there's no room for error for them. But this is a game. If you're Eagles, you go into this game saying, "Hey, we're game up right now on Dallas, but we can get them to 3 losses and we can go to 8-1." And in Dallas on the other side, they could be like, "Listen, we lost the crap game to Arizona. We got shellacked by San Fran.
Hmm.
We're changing the story today. We're changing the look of this season and putting ourselves in control for that number one seed." I know it's only week 9, but it's a huge game, and it's a really big week this week for both teams. This game has huge implications on seeding going forward with the way San Fran really gave up, 3 games in a row. This game has huge implications. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. But even with that being said, I think the pressure is on the Eagles more so than the Cowboys, because we play them again. So we can make up this game with our home game, which we've been dominating at home. But the Eagles are just coming into the tough part of their schedule. So if they go in with 2 losses to play the Chiefs, the Bills, the Niners, us again, and Seahawks, with 2 losses going into that stretch, if they even win, let's say 3 of those 5, they're sitting at 4 losses.
I get that point, but also I think for us, when you look down, we do get the Eagles again at
Mhm.
home, but then in the next 2 weeks we have to go to Buffalo in December. I don't know how Dak plays in Buffalo in December. I don't really remember ever seeing him in cold weather. I don't think it's good.
I'm not sold on Josh Allen anymore.
Yeah, but it's still Buffalo in December and Dallas. They play in Dallas.
Well, defense travels. That's kind of, you
Yeah,
know,
and then
it's-
and then we get Miami. So we do have. I think I think a lot. I've heard a lot of it. Especially national and a lot of Dallas people say Eagles do have a tough schedule coming up, which they definitely do. But I think Dallas is this is big because you still, like you said, we still have to play Philly later. So even if we could potentially, because I always pick 1-1. I just typically that's most your good teams. That's what happens.
Mhm.
But they do play Buffalo. They play Miami again. We have to play Seattle still. So we have after Philly, we do get the Giants and Carolina, which are both winnable games. But then Dallas does his. We
Yeah,
do it at and then Detroit after Miami, and Detroit looks really good. Um, so
yeah.
so we do have a tough 6-game schedule right before we get to end with Washington. So that's why I do
Mhm.
think this game. I think it's
But
more important for Dallas.
4 of those 6 games for us are at home, and like I said, we've been 11-game home winning streak. So yeah, I
Okay,
you
I,
know,
I
so
agree
I
with
I
you there.
think yeah. So hey, look, if we win, awesome. I'm gonna be pumped. Ultimately, I want a competitive game. We can't have what happened against the Niners happen again. That's the absolute worst scenario.
I think this is a. I feel like we've said this too much. I think for Dak. And I think if Dallas wants to be taken seriously as a contender, this is a must-win game. You can't if you're Dallas and you want to be taken seriously after you've lost to Arizona, who you shouldn't have lost to, and then
Mhm.
got schlacked by San Fran. If you want to be taken seriously as a Super Bowl contender, you can't come out and lay an egg against the Eagles. I think you have to win, even if it's a close win. You want to win convinced, but if it's close win, I think for Dallas, because you come out and win this game, I think you're instantly talked about as the top. You're now you're in a top 5 power ranking situation.
Okay.
If you lose, you're just that's why I think it's the pressure is much more on Dallas because you're going to be looked at as frauds by pretty much everyone if you go in and lose this game.
I, if we get blown out, like with what happened with against the Niners, that's the only scenario where I'm saying we're a fraudulent team, and I'm gonna have to wait till Christmas to even be serious again, about where we are going into January. But
So
I
how
don't
big
see
is
that
that loss
happening.
though? So it has to be like you think to you it has to be. So
A
you
20
think
point 20 point plus loss.
So you're thinking for 17 is not you're not. See, to me, if you get beat by 2 touchdowns, I don't even care. I understand you're in Philly.
Mhm.
If you're Dallas and you're a quality team, you can't lose by anything less than 7.
Okay. Well,
Anything less than that, and I don't want to see like it blown out and then you just make a fourth quarter comeback because they gave up. You have to, I want to see you in this game. I want to watch how you played because when I
mhm.
watched you against San Fran, you did not look good at all. So I want to you if you I want to see if you're a real team and this is your second test. You can't fail this test.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the Niners, a lot of 3 and outs,
A
only
lot
a
of three and
couple,
outs.
only a couple of possessions in the first half. So against a dominant defense like that, you're just going to get smashed. Against the Eagles defense, you can pass on them. So you should be able to come back and move the ball. And that's one of the things with Dak. He plays really well when the team has a lead, and when the team is struggling and we put the ball in his hands, that's when it's a little bit more challenging for us to overcome. So that's why I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does happen, if the blowout does happen, I will be, depending on how it happens, 20 plus points, I'll be devastated. Now, with that being said, what I hope happens is that there's 0 turnovers on both ends, and we just see who comes out on top.
Prediction time.
Because right.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I hope happens is that neither team has a turnover. So that way we know what the final score is. It's like, bam,
okay,
there it is. That was, offense against defense at its best.
So now that, what are you, prediction time? What are you picking? Who wins? Who's kind of the reason and the reason they won? Who's your standouts in this victorious for either side?
So to catch up a little bit on our Madden simulation, it's been, I think, an episode or two since I ran Madden. Madden says 31-26, Cowboys win, but AJ Brown has 136 yards.
Yeah, if he has 136 yards, it's gonna be a tough day.
But his long was 73.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
I get it.
For me, and I said we were gonna win in Philly, during the offseason, in my schedule prediction. So I have Cowboys winning. I'm sticking with the Cowboys, 27-23.
Okay, I can dig it. Listen, I hope so. I do. To me, this is a big game for Dak. As I've said, I think you just can't keep losing the big games, and this Eagles team is a good team, and you don't want to. After what happened and how bad you looked against San Fran, you can't have that happen again. Which I don't think he will. I don't think Dak has a super bad game. I think Dak is able to pass, but I just think the Eagles are a better team. I really do. I think they're a more complete team. I think Dallas is missing a piece here. Their offensive line just isn't what it was. In terms of just pure quarterback, Dak's better, but I do think AJ Brown is a little bit more of a difference maker than a CeeDee Lamb. They both get to the quarterback, both have really good corners. I just think the Eagles come out victorious here. I think it's a close game. I think it's kind of like you said. I'm thinking 20, 27, 24 Philly. I think they win it at the end of the field goal. I think Dak has an opportunity at the end, but doesn't. He doesn't knock him out. He doesn't give him that knockout blow. And I'm feeling there's going to be a fourth down that Dallas doesn't convert, and I'm going to be very upset with McCarthy.
So how are you going to feel if Eagles win 27-26 because Aubrey missed his first field goal of the season? It was a 42-yard field goal to win.
I'm gonna be hot at Aubrey, but I'd be like to me, I want to see, you need to be competitive. Like, I don't want to say I'm okay with a loss, but you can't have what San Fran happen. You can't come into another big game, and even if it is a close game, I need Dak. I need to see from Dak. This is a game where I want you to show up. If Dak shows up and has a good game and we lose like that, I'm confident going forward with them, and I'm confident, in that tough stretch down the season, that we'll take some victories there and not just have him look bad for each of them.
Okay. Now, for me, I know I'm confident in Dak's abilities. It's really going to come down to what McCarthy has drawn up for him. And I'd like to see him have the options and some flexibility at the line. But what I've heard over and over in press conferences, I've heard Dak say this multiple times: we got the look we were expecting. So, preparation,
man.
I
think I don't want to. I don't want to see points left on the board. I don't want to see that this week. Like if Aubrey hits a 54 yarder, let him kick the 47 yarder later. I get it worked last week. There's going to come times where that doesn't work and you're going to cost yourself some points. I think we saw it in the Arizona game. Could have been much different. We saw, San Diego, we were able to get out of it. But a game like an Eagles team, you can't. Um, I know it feels good if you go and get it, but that can also against a team like the Eagles, it can really backfire. So I want to see McCarthy call a smooth game. Take the points when they're there, because at the end of the day, against a team like the Eagles, you're going to need them.
We're definitely going to have a conversation on situational play calling because the Eagles went for it. I believe it was on at least three times on fourth down when they played us last October. Sirianni's pretty aggressive. McCarthy's been
Very much.
aggressive, even going for it on our own side of the field. So, there's going to be, I think, a little bit of everything. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. Either way,
Yeah.
I think it's either going to be it's going to be like a 3-point game, or it's going to be a 40-point game. It's never in between with these two teams. But I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of fourth downs going for in this game.
Yeah, I would
Just by the way these coaches go.
Would you say over or under 3?
I would say over. I think
Yeah, that's a
I would
lot.
I would even do a boost and alter that to like 5. Because I could see the Eagles
Oh.
do it. There's been drives you've seen the Eagles go for multiple fourth downs, on the goal line. They're a
Mhm.
team that is very, very aggressive. So that if a 3 to me, I'm taking the over because I think it's going to be an aggressive game. I think both are going to play to the other side because each know how aggressive the other guy is. I think that's going to like amp it up even more.
Did you see the Eagles? They had 0 penalties against the Dolphins.
I did not. Is that
And
serious?
there was like some trending pictures of like obvious holding by the O-line. That's the other thing too. The Phillies play a pretty clean game from a penalty perspective. And if we give them an extra,
You,
allow them to extend drives,
they're a team that makes you pay.
yeah.
100%. And I think, this is why this is a huge game. To me, it may not be season deciding because, they can go on a nice 7-game run later and sweep through that tough schedule that we talked about, and
Yeah.
we'll both be it. But I do think in the terms of, the fan base, the media, everybody believing in you. And even I think for McCarthy's faith in his, going forward, and for Dak, I think you got to have a big game here. I think it changes the season if you win this game. I think they're front runners I think they're NFC. This game is a game that could propel you to the NFC Championship.
Ooh.
I'm putting pressure. I think but I believe that I truly believe that I wouldn't just throw it out there. I truly believe it's a huge game for Dallas. Eagles, I think, can lose this game and be okay and still go and make the run. I think for
Mhm.
Dallas, if they lose this game, I think their confidence gets shot, and
Yeah.
you're not going to believe in them.
If you're right, if we win, we're talking about our seeding almost the rest of the way out, right? We
You
hold
control your
on,
own faith
hold
for the rest
on.
of the season.
Exactly. Hold on to that seed. And if we go in with this team, how we've been playing at home, if we go into the playoffs with number 1 seed, um, and the divisional round is against a 4 seed or 5 seed plus,
Dude, it's
NFC
that's
championship game
I
right there.
truly, I really, I believe in. So I want to see Dak play. That's why
All right.
I know I'm predicting. I just don't see it. But I 100% hope I'm wrong and Dak goes and balls out. Really hope it. But that's Cowboys Takeover podcast this week. Kind of would both stay true to our projections for the season. Mr. Aaron James taking the Cowboys to win in a close one, and myself taking the Eagles to win in a very close one. I do think it's all about performance this week. I think, like Aaron said, you want to see a healthy game. You don't want to see a game like you had with San Fran where you had some injuries. and you want to see how Dak plays. You want to see if he can go out and do it against these good teams. So please, I cannot wait till 425 on Sunday. It's probably going to be America's game of the week. Everybody's going to be watching. It's always a great game. It's always fun in my household, fighting back and forth with my dad, going back and forth. Even when he had Romo as our fantasy quarterback, he loved it. Please go give us a like and a follow on our social media pages, Cowboys Takeover Podcast on Twitter, on Facebook, on Insta, and also on YouTube. Go give us a subscribe, give a like. We do live stream all of these on both platforms. So go, watch us either way. Share us with your friends. Be a friend, tell a friend. Leave us some likes and comments. Good, bad, indifferent. Just let us know how you guys are feeling. We definitely enjoy to interact during these live shows as well. So, come in, drop a comment, interact. We'll definitely respond back. And we really appreciate all you guys for listening. Keep following, keep us posted. And we're also, as you all know, or if you don't, on Spotify, and all, anywhere you can listen to your sports podcasting network stuff. So for Mr. Aaron James, I'm Jason Kent. Really appreciate you guys. It's tough to say because I feel like a hypocrite now, but let's go Cowboys. Let's pull out a big dub this week. Let's get it done. We win this week. I think it's a season changer, and I think a lot of people believe it. Dallas comes out and wins this week. You're in prime position for that number 1 seed, and you control your own fate. That's a good feeling. So again, for Mr. Aaron James, and I'm Jason Kent. Enjoy your weekend. Can't wait for Sunday.